head coach, Fox Sports. So, it's interesting. Old teams have an advantage early. You're not teaching guys tricks. Old teams can fall apart late. Any of my Niner concerns to you land that you were, because I do think even great teams peak, and I felt like, boy, they're old guys, Kittle, Trent, they're long in the tooth. What say you?
Yeah, a couple of your concerns really hit. The fact that they're an old team, that's real, and that's been statistically proven over time that the amount of injuries with older teams mount up, and the younger teams, not only do they not get as injured, but they get better as the season goes on, as opposed to getting worse. I would say the Christian McCaffrey concern is real as well. The reason he's in San Francisco is because he couldn't stay healthy in Carolina, and he's been remarkably healthy since he's gotten to San Francisco, but it's hard to imagine that trend's going to continue. Now, that being said, the 49ers over the last decade have been the most injured team in the league. They've had the most guys miss games, but last year was their best year of that decade. They actually finished out of the bottom 10 in the NFL last season. So maybe they're getting a little bit better and figuring some of those things out in terms of keeping the guys healthy. I don't totally agree with the noisy offseason. I get it with Ayuk. I get it with Trent Williams. But there's always going to be contract disputes, especially if you have the success that they've had. It's not been terrible. Here's the thing that the big question mark and the thing that saves them is if Brock Purdy is the real deal, then they're going to be competitive for a Super Bowl for a long time. And everybody's trying to figure out whether or not the guy that we've seen is a function of the coaching staff and the talent he has, or whether or not he's on that Tom Brady unheralded trajectory that we've seen happen, once in the past.
So the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah. So there's a few points about this. Let me see if I can get back to Colin's list. I'll just address all five really, really quickly. I'm not a fan of noisy off seasons, especially when you're trying to go for a Super Bowl. Yeah, there's always going to be some issues and stuff like that. But to me, the margin of error within these teams is so small that when you have a noisy offseason, when you have a disgruntled wide receiver and you don't know if he's going to be there, is he going to be there, is he not, is he causing problems, it just can cause chaos. It causes issues. And it can divide locker rooms. It can annoy coaching staff. It can just infect the team. That's really what it comes down to. It can just infect the team. And when you're this close to a Super Bowl, those little things can start to bring you back a little bit rather than bring you across the finish line. And it's one thing if it's the Dallas Cowboys, if it's some of these other teams that are not truly right on the edge of winning a Super Bowl, then it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? Like, that's just the way it is. But when you're talking about a team that is so close to winning a Super Bowl, within the last, 5 years, like 3 legitimately, like, oh my God, right there moments, any of the little things that can pull you down, you just want to minimize. It's like that in any aspect of life, right? So you can't just say, oh, it's nothing. Because it is something. It's not everything, but it is something. The oldest roster in the NFL is also something, right? They were, very extremely healthy last season, which you're kind of fortunate in that regard. The older you get, the more likely, the more injury prone you're going to be, the slower you bounce back, and that's a real thing. That's what they're kind of realizing, like, hey, it's better to keep your defense real young because it's real physical. These guys get banged up, and you need them to be able to kind of get back into the game within a few weeks or so if it's like a more of a legitimate injury. Whereas the offense can be a little bit less physical, depending on the position, of course, and so you're not going to maybe get some of these same more regular wear and tear injuries outside of, say, running back, which is why we've seen the NFL try to, pull away from the running back position. So we know at least older defenses can kind of run into some trouble. That it's just a slower bounce back, and the younger you are, the more efficient that is. I feel like that's a trend that we're kind of seeing a little bit more. And so when you have the wear and tear on McCaffrey, who is obviously your workhorse, right? He's obviously the engine of that team. It's concerning. I mean, like it felt like he was kind of hanging on by a thread last season. With his calf. It's just always kind of something maybe lingering with him. And so you just don't know. Any actual legitimate 49ers fans has to admit that, like, you are kind of always crossing your fingers with McCaffrey. Like, please stay healthy, please stay healthy, please stay healthy. It is a legitimate thing. And it's one of those things when you see that they're up by 10 or 14 or whatever, you're kind of like, a part of you is probably like, I just would like Christian McCaffrey not to be in there right now. Or like, does he really have to take that handoff right now for 4 yards? It's not necessary. Like, please, just stop. I don't know if number 4 is that the Rams are ascending. The Rams are always going to be trouble. It's Sean McVay. Okay, that's just a reality. I don't know if that's like the top 5 concerns. I would say the top 5 concerns, a top concern is not just the Rams, and he kind of has it. NFC is younger and better. Is that lots of teams are ascending against the 49ers, right? You have the Lions. You have the Packers. We can say the Rams, the Eagles. Like those teams all, whether you think that they're true threats or not, they should all be better than what they were last year. So theoretically, they're all ascending. And so then you have to ask, did the 49ers get better than they were last year? And I'm not so sure. I think they remained about the same. And again, now you have to worry about some injury issues. The big question is, and this is what Mangini pointed out, is, I guess, is there a next level for Brock Purdy? And I don't know. I'm a fan of Brock Purdy. I'm not one of those guys that just says, Brock Purdy's not good, not good, not good. But I don't know if there's a whole next level of a gear of Brock Purdy. I really don't know. I want to wait and see. I'm excited to wait and see. Can he be that next level difference maker? Ultimately, there were some issues in the Super Bowl for the 49ers where I don't blame Brock Purdy at all. But if Brock Purdy is technically a 5 or 10% better quarterback, I think he's in a position to overcome those issues, like the fumbles and some injuries, like to Greenlaw and whatnot. Then I think that they win that Super Bowl. So then the question is can Brock Purdy get 5 to 10% better than what he is? And what does that look like? Is that taking advantage of his mobility? And now that kind of changes how defenses have to play him. It opens up the field a little bit more. Like, what actually is it? I don't know. I truly don't. I'm not going to just make something up. He's got to be able to push the ball down the field more consistently. Maybe. I don't know. It all depends. It all depends, honestly. It all depends on how the games, unfold and come to them. So that, to me, that's probably one of the biggest things. And I think that would probably technically be the biggest concern is, does Brock Purdy get 5 to 10% better than what he's been? And a concern, not as in where I think the answer is no. It's just like, probably not concerned, the biggest question mark. Because that ends up being the difference maker. Because if he doesn't get 5 to 10% better and he just is who he is, that's great. That's awesome. But we see what that looks like. We see kind of the outcome of what that can get you. And it's very good, very close to that Super Bowl. And in many situations, probably Super Bowl winning worthy. But when you're going up against the Mahomes, things can get a little, questionable. Because also Jordan Love's going to be a better quarterback now. And if Jordan Love was his 5 to 10% better and more mature in that Green Bay Packers versus 49ers game, you're probably going to give it up to the Packers, right? It was such a small margin that it's not hard to imagine if Jordan Love is just 5-10% better, they can win that game. So all of these quarterbacks are ascending, these teams are ascending, and the 49ers have to make sure that they're keeping up with that momentum as well. And so, yeah, it's really going to be interesting to me to see what the season looks like for them. I hope they can stay healthy, because I just don't want, if Christian McCaffrey goes down and then Brock Purdy doesn't look as good, and then it's going to be all the hate on Purdy and all of that. And I don't, that most players will take a step back if they're, if a huge part of their offense goes down. So I hope they can stay healthy. I hope we can kind of see what this team can do, and see kind of the progression of Brock Purdy, and see if he can actually get that 5 to 10% better, right? If they were to play in the Super Bowl again against the Chiefs, exact team, exact health, can Brock Purdy take that next level step? I'm excited to see. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that there's legitimate concerns with the 49ers, or do you think this is more much ado about nothing? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.